They create it for themselves. They create it for each other. The support that they show each other is so special and so unique, and they get each other going. They get the crowd going, and
Yeah.
it just feels. I think you have to, because God, men's gymnastics is hard. You know?
Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to season 2 of Flipping Out with Bridget Sloan, the Olympic special. I am your host, Bridget Sloan, and I will be joined each week by the one, the only, the legend herself, Miss Kathy Johnson Clark. We will be talking all things elite gymnastics, that is including all competitions leading up and during the Olympic Games. For today's episode, we have part 2 of the Olympic trials recap. We will be focusing on the men for today's episode, and Miss Kathy Johnson Clark is going to go into exactly how the team was decided, what we thought amazing routines were out there, and unfortunately the heartbreaks that happened. Let's get into it. Well, Miss Kathy Johnson Clark, we are back for part 2 of our Olympic trials recap. We did the women last week, and it was amazing as always, but we have to cover the men. And I think you and I both know the men have come a long way with just seeing them, even just from last year to this year. I think there are massive improvements, but the Olympic team was chosen. There was a lot of heartbreak. There was a lot of, Olympic trials is one of the best competitions ever, but it's also the worst because either dreams come true or dreams get crushed. And I think you and I both know the feeling on both sides. We've been in both realms of, the dreams coming true and dreams being crushed. But this men's team, they had a little different system. And I know that you know the system of how they chose the Olympic team, which we will get into, but they look ready. They look excited and they look ready. And that is, in my opinion, that is so important for a team to not be chosen and then say, oh God, what do I do now? They look like they're like, let's go. Let's do this."
The men's program has been building
Mhm.
over the past several years, and I go back as a men's gymnastics fan all the way back to the 80s. Okay. I
Love
was
it.
lucky enough to be teammates with our men's team that made history in 1984 in Los Angeles, winning the gold medal, and they beat the reigning world champions, China, at the time. So I have watched and loved men's gymnastics all these years. So I am the absolute gym nerd, even for men's gymnastics, and have loved it. So I have enjoyed watching over the past 5-6 years
Mhm.
the focus for the men to really want to be competitive. And in order to
Yeah.
be competitive with the best in the world, it's the difficulty, the D score
Mhm.
that really needed to be elevated. And so the men took it up that
Yeah.
next level and created a system that they were going to encourage difficulty, even if you couldn't quite hit it perfectly. They
Mhm.
wanted it safe, obviously. You don't want injuries, but start putting this difficulty in there to build that score so you're at least on the same page,
Yeah.
mathematically with the best in the world. And they've been able to do that. So last year at the World Championships, them winning the bronze medal set up this year so fantastically. And
Mhm.
all of these men were ready and primed. And
Yeah.
now we get into the Olympic year. And we've been seeing exciting things. And of course, everybody holding their breath, hoping that Brody Malone would be able to get back and be in top form. Well, he showed that at USA Championships. So now let's look at the system in
Mhm.
how they chose. And here's what I want to stress about selection,
Yeah.
okay, and trials and selection. So it is the holy grail, trying to find the perfect way
Mhm.
select a team, the perfect way, is like finding the holy grail. There is none. There is
Right.
no perfect way.
As I'd say, it's really it's impossible. You're always going to, I don't wanna say leave someone out, but it's impossible to have the perfect system,
Yeah,
in my
because
opinion.
trying to balance. So if you look at the men's and women's track and field trials, they're brutal. Like it's
Oh, yeah.
just
Right.
Period. Amen. And we had a dear friend who was the reigning world champion, world record holder at the time, I think, in Olympic hurdles. He woke up the day of trials or the day before trials with a flu, 104 feet. Like, you
Oh my
just,
gosh.
too bad you race. And he ended up fourth
Mm.
with 102 temperature, but you still end up fourth, but you
Right.
missed the team. So brutal. So gymnastics has always tried to find the way that you can have just enough, not leeway, but just to be able to protect an athlete who's
Mhm.
perhaps the best, one of the top. Let's take Simone Biles,
Yep.
because nobody would argue that. Simone Biles. And she happens to get sick the week before trials. Or, turns a little ankle, but it's nothing. Like, it can be better.
Right.
So the way we've done it in the past, I remember back in my day, there were times we weighted the compulsory rounds more than the
Mhm.
optional, because we, as a women's program, needed to improve in order to be competitive with the world. Well, can you imagine? We it, Compulsories would count 60%, optionals would be 40%. We counted all the meets from championships and then trials, and you like
Mhm.
huge numbers,
Yeah.
much data in there. But that didn't put all of the, you know, everything on one meet. So the men this year did
Yeah.
that. So here's the system. Here's how it worked. So championship, once they qualified to championship,
Mhm.
it was national team, making the national team,
Yep.
going to the U.S. championships. Um, and then the number that qualified into trials. But those who qualified from championships into trials, those two scores were going to count within the system, within the selection system, from championships. So
Okay.
that's why I kept all of my numbers from
Mhm.
championships, so you knew where everybody stood at championships, the numbers, the data that they're bringing in, and then 2 days of trials. So that's 4 sets of scores that they're going to use. And then they have different team scoring scenarios that they would run all of this data through. All 6 events.
Mhm.
Set one would be the best 3 of the 4 scores added together. And then you would look who's in the top 3 with team finals in mind, who's in the top 4 with preliminaries in mind, and of course, 5, because you can select 5 for your team. So you want 5 routines that you can put into that event
Mhm.
no matter what, because you need some backups too, because
Right.
things happen at the trials. So think of all those scenarios and all those numbers and all that data going through the system, and then set two. So they could set the team based on that if it's all the same people, and you're like, oh, there's our team. Okay.
Right.
But they have all these other different scenarios that they crunch all those numbers and all that data in.
Yeah.
And the next one is all 4 scores. Okay, so you have to count all 4 scores: 2 days of
Mhm.
competition championships, 2 days of competition at trials on each event, and then see who's in the top 3. And keep in mind, and I think this is important for everybody to know, what I've been told, this system, this data driven selection system, is
Mhm.
what the athletes wanted. And these are grown men
Yeah.
who think through everything. And this
Mhm.
is the transparency they wanted. They wanted to know exactly what they needed to do, because it's black and white. What it doesn't do is allow much leeway. And if
Right.
something weird happens, like many of your top all arounders falling on pommel horse, that creates a situation.
Right.
Okay. So the system is designed to work perfectly if everybody follows the script that they've written for themselves
Right.
and does exactly what they expect they'll do at both championships and then at trials each day, so that the numbers actually reflect what our eyeballs are seeing when we're
Right.
sitting in the arena or we're watching on television. And that's where things got a little, like, it pickled some people's brains,
Yeah.
broke some
Got a
hearts.
little dicey. Got a little dicey.
It did. But as we go through, and talk about some of the things that happened, you'll
Yeah.
see how that changed the dynamic and then how it would
Right.
affect the numbers that have to go into this data-driven system and then put out the names of the team that will represent us in Paris. But the one thing they wanted is for the winner of the Olympic trials. So you could lock in your spot
Mhm.
on the men's side by winning the all around and being top three in at least three events. That's
Okay.
not easy to do. Okay. Six very, very different events. And half of those, you need to be in the top three of all the best gymnasts in the country and then
Mhm.
win the all around. Well, guess who did that? Fred Richard. So, and he did it magnificently. And he took advantage of, like, Brody had come in with so much momentum coming from
Right.
championships. He looked just, I don't want to say,
Insane.
yeah,
No,
not,
he looked insane. Not and I don't wanna take away from his talent because it's always been there, but when you're coming back from an injury, it it's challenging, and sometimes people will count you out because of said injury, and I felt like he was like, "Count me out, I dare you." Like, I dare you to not put me on this team.
yeah. And with Brody, because his nature, like the way he has always been, this is what I've
Mhm.
been told. I'm not in the gym, but that he trains so hard, so smart, so like
Yeah.
complete. This is why you see the gymnastics that you do. He is just so well trained and well prepared. So he used the injury almost like it was a superpower.
Yep.
Okay. He focused on things that he could do while he was rehabbing that knee. So once the knee was ready to go, everything else was better than ever.
Mhm.
So, but at the trials, first day one, he had a good meet, but he did not have his exceptional meet. There
Right.
were a few little things. I mean, I remember pommel horse. It's like, oh my God, this guy is a magical beast. How he got through that routine, like he has muscles in his teeth. I know it. He
Possibly.
just, yeah, possibly, and just willed himself through
Mhm.
pommel horse. And both those days, when you've got others really faltering on that event, there was, when something happens and then it just sort of like ripples through, like
Oh,
almost
yeah.
like a cold, like catching a
Yeah.
cold. It kind of happens. And you had mentioned it's kind of like Beam and pommel horse. They both bite. You can tame them,
Right.
but they will bite you sometimes.
Mhm.
Um, so, anyways, the cool thing about Brody is day two, he improved every single event, including sticking cold. His vaults,
Oh,
oh
yeah.
my God. And first time competing without the brace on his leg, too. Like that he's able to do that so consistently was amazing.
Mhm.
Um, but then the high bar, like
Yeah.
his best event. And I think it was shocking, to everybody. Um, and the, but here's the cool thing. This is Brody. Did you see anything change on his face?
No. He just, like I mean, I can't talk because I was similar when I was an elite and I had no emotion and you never really knew if I was happy or sad or excited because I just, like, was stoned
Mm,
faced. I was more so, like, anxiety driven, but that's okay. And the one thing that I will say about Brody, though, is he looked calm to me, which I know that's weird
no, he did.
because like, but he looked so at peace with every piece
Mhm.
of gymnastics he did. Whether it
Yep.
was great, whether it was a little off, a little this, it never phased him, which is something that you gotta work on that. I mean, you have to work on that as an athlete to not let, the little things get to you, but in gymnastics, it is so easy. It is so easy to let a mistake just stick in your head and
Yeah.
just be there the rest of the meet.
And
And
the cool thing is, so he's even keel inside, but his gymnastics isn't. Like it's
yeah.
big and bold
Oh,
and,
yeah.
like really puts it out there. So I love, um, I love those two seemingly opposite
Mhm.
dynamics in the
Yeah.
same gymnast because but the trust that he has in his training and his preparation, it just shows through. So he just, I mean, actually pretty amazing. And this is the system. If the system had to work for all of the events, Brody's all around scores from
Mhm.
all four competitions. And in both scenarios, set one, counting three of the scores, highest scores, or four, his was higher than Fred's, but Fred won the Olympic trials. So
Mm.
on that day,
Right.
that combination, Fred won. And I don't think I mentioned the three events that he was top three, and it was floor, parallel bars, and high bar. And he won high bar at
Mhm.
the Olympic trials, was third on parallel bars, and he won floor, or third at
Mm.
trials. But his combined scores in both
Right.
scenarios was number one on floor um,
Wow.
at the Olympic trials. And Brody was top three on pommel horse, ring. This is in the system on
Yep.
all four
Right.
scores, and in both counting the three or counting the four, he was top three in pommel horse.
Mhm.
Rings, he was second on rings, even though he placed fourth at the trials on rings.
Right.
And he was third at trials on vault, top three on parallel bars, and top three on high bar. So
Yeah.
Fred and Brody just so secure in their
Mhm.
spots. Beautiful gymnastics. They will carry the momentum from the World Championship
Yeah.
with them, which is really awesome to
Yeah.
have. And let's see.
Well, we need to mention who the Olympic team is. We haven't actually
You also mentioned two, so
we've mentioned 2, but it is important to I wanted to make sure that we went over how this team was decided because it was very there were a lot of comments about the team and what their decision making was because when you looked at the women's side, it just happened, and you and I both said this, it just happened that the top 5 made the Olympic team.
yes,
Now, that is not necessarily how it always works out, but in again, on the women's side, that's how it worked out. You would almost I don't wanna say you would assume that it would work out similar to that on the men's side, but I think my brain normally is like, "Well, if the women are doing it, why are the men not? Like, why are the selections so different?" But as Kathy, you have said, it is a totally different beast.
it's a total 6 events. Okay,
6
let's
events,
add 2
5
events
athletes.
to women's. I don't know, we'll make them up. Swinging
Oh my god.
rings. Let's put
Absolutely not.
rings in, and you
Don't
go,
sign
"Oh,
me up for
wait a
that.
minute." So then it and you've got 3 up 3 count for team
Right.
finals. So that dynamic just changes everything. So
Everything.
you
Right.
actually have to have a selection process
Mhm.
that isn't based on all around placing. You
Yep.
want strong all-arounders, one, because you have to have people who can fill in if they have to,
Mhm.
and do multiple events, especially when you can only pick 5 men, just like the women.
Yeah.
The women are only doing 4 events, so that's 3, 6, 12 routines by 5 people,
Mhm.
you know, in the team finals. Okay, 18
Yeah, it's
routines
a lot.
by 5 people. It's a lot of routines, and that you want the top 3 because the men are in medal contention.
They
They
are.
want
And
people to
that's a huge piece of the puzzle because I think Team USA on the men's side just got tired of being looked over. They've always had talent. They have always had wow gymnastics. But it is I mean, this Olympic Games is going to be so tough, in my opinion, in every sport, but in gymnastics on the men's side, there are some amazing, amazing athletes that are
yes,
going to be competing.
yes, yeah,
But okay, so your men's Olympic team, without further ado,
yes. Let's put it up, and then we'll talk about them and how they made it.
perfect.
What what made it possible?
Perfect. So we talked about Fred Richard, excellent. Brody Malone, Paul Judah, Asher Hong, and Steven Nedorozic.
Yep.
So those are your 5. That's your team right there, your
Yes.
5.
Yes.
On paper, you do have a specialist in there,
Hmm.
which is I think back to my team in 2008, we had a specialist.
Yes.
Sasha was a pommel horse specialist,
Yes.
and Sasha no doubt helped the men win a bronze medal. I mean, without that pommel horse routine, I don't know what would have happened, but we don't have to know because it didn't.
No. No.
But
So the way the system worked, and it Stephen was going to have his work cut out for him
Mhm,
to even have a chance. And this is a world class,
without
contender
a
for a
doubt.
medal on
Right,
this event. He has proven that. Okay.
right.
So just make sure everybody knows that. But if ever we have a great team, a
Mhm,
great group of all arounders and other phenomenal pommel horse workers. Coy Young just won a silver medal at the last Worlds on pommel horse, a silver medal on vault as well. Okay, helped the team to a bronze medal,
right.
and others who are very very strong on that event. But so many of the top all arounders unexpectedly had problems on pommel horse, including Coy Young.
Yeah,
Okay. So when that happens in the system, it virtually locked them in to potentially having to go with a specialist, because you need that score on pommel horse.
mhm,
And here's why: the difference in his pommel horse routine makes in the way things played out with the US championships and the trials and all the scores. It's like a 3-point differential. 3 points.
which is huge.
It's
That
huge.
is huge.
And that's without Stevens' highest
Mhm,
possible D score, because he did not compete it. He
right.
didn't do his highest level of difficulty. He took some things out, missed something, not missed something, but skipped over it for whatever
Yeah,
reason. Um, but still had a higher D score than everybody else and a high execution score. And so he outscored everybody by a lot
yeah,
in that event. So just the numbers and the way the system worked out, he had a great shot. All he had to do was really hit his pommel horse routines,
mhm,
because others had sort of opened the door for him to do that. And
yeah.
the other two team members that made this team, I mean, emotionally, let's talk about Paul Judah. Um,
Oh, my heart just, like, soared for
yeah,
his emotion and passion and just the raw and realness that he showed
yeah,
was really refreshing. It was really refreshing.
yeah. And he kicked ass.
Yeah, he did.
He just really did.
Period.
Exactly. So he did his job, and that was probably one of my favorite moments. On floor, in both scenarios, he was top three on floor.
Mhm.
And here's the biggie: I put 3 stars on my notes
Oh, I
on
see it.
pommel horse. Pump
3 stars.
stars right there, because on pommel horse he placed third at trials, and his combined scores in both scenarios put him second and third in the 2 scenarios
It's
on
huge.
pommel horse. Well, hello, it's like that was his holy grail. It's like that's
Mm,
what he really needed to do. So that floor work, his pommel horse work, and then over on high bar, um, clinched it. He was top three in set one in the scenario, counting 3 scores, and then
right.
four in the other. So he secured his place, in that system. It was beautiful. And he was sixth at U.S. championships in the all around and fourth all around at trials. So before I get to the fifth one who made the team, because that was awesome too, I can't skip over, because sadly the system skipped over Shane Wiskus. And if you were in
Yeah.
the arena, you know, and watching on I don't know what it was like because I didn't watch the broadcast. I was
Mhm.
in the arena for both days of competition. And by the way, kudos to the audience again. Like, I cannot tell you how appreciative they are, and knowledgeable, and the athletes, the athletes,
Mhm.
men, if you've watched them compete the last few years, especially in college, sometimes to not packed arenas that the women
Right.
have in college, they create their own energy.
Oh, yeah.
They create it for themselves, they create it for each other. The support that they show each other
Mhm.
is so special and so unique, and they get each other going, they get the crowd going, and
Yeah.
it just feels, I think you have to, because God, men's gymnastics is hard. When you it is
Yes, yes.
it's
Gymnastics is hard in general, but men's gymnastics, it's on
yeah,
another level.
crazy hard. So Shane Wiskus
Mhm.
competing in his hometown, feeling all the love, all the support, he met the moment like no other gymnast at the trials. Seriously,
Yeah. Yeah.
like just met the moment. I wasn't kidding when I said he literally is bringing tears to my eyes watching him, because this is the Olympic moment I talked about. So his
Yep.
gymnastics was beautiful. His spirit
Mhm.
his was through the roof. Um, And there's no way in the world that anybody sitting there, including all the people crunching the numbers and watching all the numbers go in there and spit out, the information that they're going to have to
Mhm.
look at to make this team selection. There's no way anyone thought this guy didn't earn that spot. It felt like it. It just, that's what it felt like.
Yeah.
Okay. But here's the situation. I'm going to go back to my back page of notes, because trust me,
Well,
I put them all in.
and Kathy, he is going to Paris.
He is, yes.
Coy Young and Shane Wiskus they are
Yeah.
the traveling alternates. So they will be in Paris, which I think it's really important. And I know that you've said this on multiple episodes, but just, you know, your Olympic experience is your own. You create that. You whatever that looks like for you. And Shane Wiskus no doubt performed just lights out. I mean, you talk about a hometown hero. Yes.
Mhm.
It
Yes.
it was amazing to watch. I will say on TV, we didn't get to see enough, in my opinion,
Mm.
but that's TV. That's fine. Moving on. It is so hard, and it is heartbreaking. I
I
mean,
know.
these are the moments that are
I know.
it takes me back, like, I think Olympic trials either makes or breaks you. Like, you have 2 options. You can take the heartbreak and just let it eat you alive,
Mhm.
or you can take the heartbreak, you can process however you need to do that, and remember that it doesn't define you. This moment does not define him.
No, gosh, no. And yet it does, because of everybody who competed there. I mean,
Right.
who walks away feeling like I did everything
Oh, yeah.
possible
Right.
and more? I mean, he won.
Yeah.
Like, he won his Olympic moment right there. And you're right,
Yeah.
he's going to Paris, and he's going to be a phenomenal alternate athlete. And you never know like, alternates have to be so ready to step
Right.
in, and we have amazing alternates. But let me explain so that you'll understand how somebody who could place third in the all around,
Mhm.
have a phenomenal meet on every single event, how is it possible that any system
Yeah.
would not include him? And when you do the team scoring scenarios, which is what the selection system is based on, and most important thing you're looking for is top three score
Mhm.
on every single event, because that's what you want to field. You want to field your three top scores
Right.
in every event. He was in the top three in the set one using three of the four scores. He was in the top three on one event. Okay. And
That's
remember when I
yeah.
said the key is, so remember how Fred locked in his spot? It was being top three on
Mhm.
three events. So when you have 6 events and only 5 athletes, ideally, top 3 on 3 events is a pretty much shoo-in. Like,
Right. Yeah.
that will get you in. But certainly top 3 on 2 events for sure, and in that 4 spot in the other. So if I look at set 2, um, Shane is in the top 3 on floor.
Right.
He was 4th on pommel horse,
Mhm.
um, not on rings, and then number 5 on vault, number 5 on P bars, and number 3 on high bar. So 2 events, top,
Yeah.
which is great, which is why he's the alternate, which is why he's going.
Right.
And why, but it's also why people go, but oh, that's
I
top 3
know.
events, and he can do all the other events. So it doesn't leave us vulnerable in case something happens and we've got
Mhm.
a specialist who can only do one event.
Right.
So I mean, but celebrate Shane Wiskus. And I know he's celebrating. I know he was not satisfied. Like, when you
Yeah.
feel like you've done everything and you go, goodness gracious, that should have gotten me on the team. Um,
It that is the most challenging thing about gymnastics is it is I mean, you're judged and,
yeah.
a selection committee, you can do so much and you can put it all out there, but at the end of the day, it's challenging when you don't have that control of.
But their system, it's weird, does more removing subjectivity out and
Right.
makes it more objective because it's data driven and it's all
Mhm.
numbers. And as I said, and I go back to, this is what I was told the athletes really wanted.
Yeah.
Um, and as I said, looking at who's in the top 2 and 3, because you're looking at, they consider medal contention,
Mhm.
not just team number 1, that's first priority, then all around and
Right.
individual events. So,
Yep.
Asher Hong, who people may
Yes.
remember, finished 10th, shockingly, 10th all around at
Yeah.
championship. I mean, that
It
almost
almost took him out, to be
it almost
honest. I mean, it almost made it. I don't wanna
mathematically,
say it right, I don't wanna say it almost made it impossible, but when you are such a data-driven selection process,
yeah.
I mean, that's tough. It's tough to be in 10th.
Yeah, and it counted on, I mean, everybody, what
Mhm.
everybody else did too. So if others faltered, that did open up, and that's sports. Okay, that
Right.
is sports,
For
that
sure.
is life, and we all know that going into trials, we all know that
Mhm.
going into sports,
Yeah.
just that is the way it is. But Asher, what a competition.
Oh,
He
outstanding.
It was outstanding. I got to pull up all his specific data and but even just watching, when you think of Asher, I mean, obviously you think of his vault and his rings. I mean, he was that is Willow making an appearance. I apologize. She's
Willow's
18 years old.
making her debut. We love Willow. We love Willow.
She'll stop in a minute.
She She has a lot to say about Asher too. She was excited to watch him. Honestly, Willow, we all are with you. But I think Asher,
Yeah.
I mean, what really sets him apart is obviously his power, his strength, and what he's able to do with that.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
watching him at trials, you want to talk about someone that got the crowd into it, the energy oozed out of him,
Yeah.
which was just, I mean, it was just, that was really exciting to watch.
Yeah. It was. And where he just secured his
Mhm.
spot, rings. He won rings. Um, and even over Alex Diab, a ring specialist who's
Yeah.
phenomenal on that event. But for Asher to step up, win the trials on rings, and in both scenarios, he's number 1 on rings. And then vault, he was second at trials, top 3 in both
Mhm.
scenarios, and P bars, which was another event really that you needed to see the athletes step up. It's an event that I've loved.
Oh,
Uh,
same.
I love parallel bars. I just really do.
I
It's
just
so
wanna learn how to do a kip. I really do. I mean, there's no way I could do it now.
I
Past my
can't do it
prime,
now, but
past my prime.
I could do one back in the day.
Really? Wow,
Yeah,
I could never.
yeah. No, I loved rings. Pommel horse though was I really got into pommel horse, and because we had mushrooms, so we could
Oh, yeah.
wasn't
Oh,
stuff
I
on
could
it.
never do that either.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, the job now of these athletes
Mhm,
is something that they are so good at, and they've learned it in college, and the way they
mhm.
compete in college, how important team is and having each
Yep.
other's back, but the way that they create energy and the way they support each other. Oh my gosh, listen to them. When
Oh,
you're there
yeah.
in the arena, you can hear them cheering each other on through their routines.
That's amazing.
It's not finished. Let's go.
Right.
Come on,
Yeah.
I just I love seeing it. And I think they've sort of rubbed off a little bit on the women, which by the way, I'm so glad the trials were together.
Me
Men,
too. I thought they were great. I thought that why would you not? It seems silly not to have them together in my opinion. So
I think
that should always be a thing.
yeah, I'm glad we did in 1980 back in my day, but there were many trials that they didn't have us together,
Mhm.
and I it was lacking to
Yeah,
me.
it's just silly. Why separate the gymnastics community? Why make people choose, "Oh, to go here or here?"
Yeah. No,
Bring them
and they
all
support
together.
each other. I mean,
Yes.
both
Yeah.
the men and women's team really support each other, and I think especially now with the women, I mean, the women's team is older.
Mhm.
I think a lot of that is it's like you're not done,
Yeah.
in your teens anymore. You're just beginning.
Yeah. And I really I think you just nailed it. It's showcasing that age is truly just a number. That
Yeah,
these athletes it doesn't matter how old you are. It
yeah.
doesn't matter it where when I was competing,
Mm,
age I mean, I was oh my gosh, I was prehistoric.
yeah,
I was
yeah.
oh god, I was a dinosaur.
Do you know what
And
do you know what I said after I landed my beam dismount, my final one of my career? After I cried and all of that stuff,
mhm,
I laughed. I looked at my coach. I said, because I knew that was my final routine. I was retired.
right.
I said, I'm young again. Because in every other area of life,
Oh yeah.
a month away from 25, then you're young. But I had been old for so long in
Oh, I
gymnastics
know.
career. You feel like God. I'm the grandma
Oh
of
yeah.
the team. I was only
I always love telling people I retired at I was not 24 yet
mhm,
when I retired, but I was turning 24, and it's always this look of like, "I'm sorry, what?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I retired when I was
yeah,
technically I retired at 23 and, and but it is impressive. I think for me as a viewer now, it's very, very impressive to see these athletes take control of their gymnastics, they're taking control of their future
mhm,
in the
yep,
sport instead of having someone say,
yeah,
Olympics, it's more of a one and done. You do it one time and then rarely make it again.
yeah. And I think
Why was
also
that a thing?
that maturity actually helps in these stressful situations where,
Absolutely.
um, I mean, trials can be brutal
Oh
and
yeah.
the selection process can be unforgiving. But
Yes.
when you know what it is and you've signed on to it, it's like, okay, I
Mhm.
know what the rules are. It's very clear. Nothing is hidden. Nothing is,
Right.
ambiguous. It's like so the selection process, it worked.
Mhm.
They will have to go back to the drawing board, I think, on the men's side, and especially now that the athletes have experienced
Yeah.
it, and if it is true, this is what they really wanted in terms of the
Mhm.
data-driven system that did not allow much leeway, which is how you end up with Koi Young as the traveling alternate
Mhm.
a mere months after helping the team to a bronze medal and winning two silver medals at the World Championship. That's hard.
Yeah.
on a lot of people. Or then when you see a Shane Wiskus who competes like a beast, ends up third in trials, and you go, well, okay, but
Yeah.
we're looking at the way the Olympic Games are scored. This is how you compete. This is how you contend for a medal.
Right.
So this is how they created the system to do that, and everybody bought in.
Yeah. Well, so Coy Young and Shane Wiskus are the traveling alternates, so they will be going to Paris, but there were some outstanding athletes that
Yeah,
kind of broke my heart. I'm not gonna lie. You know what? I can say this because it's my podcast. I root for everybody.
yeah,
I am like, listen, I am in your corner. I want you to achieve everything and more.
yeah.
So now,
I know, and he was named a non-traveling alternate.
yes.
Wittenberg, Yul Moldauer,
Yes.
who has been the heart of the U.S. team for so many years and so like
I know.
instrumental in the success of the men's program and
Absolutely.
in bringing the attention to the sport and the love and the passion. I mean, who is more passionate when they perform and compete and cheer each other on than Yul Moldauer? And then Danelle, so he had a path. He had a path to make this team. It was narrow though,
Mhm.
but the events that he could really contribute, rings, vault.
Mhm.
Um, he was great on rings. He was third at trials, top two when you count free
Mhm.
scores, top three counting four. His vaults, everybody knows his vault. I
Oh, yeah.
mean,
Huge.
super,
Out of this world.
but he struggled
Yeah.
on one of the days, and that's just when you don't get the big numbers where you can get the big numbers in a
Yeah.
data system, it's just not going to work. But his floor routine, the final routine that he
Mhm.
performed, I mean, you want to talk about all heart, no breaks. And when USA Gymnastics put out their Heart of a Lion,
Mhm.
that I cried because I mean, Heart of a Lion, he's a gift to
Yeah.
this sport. His resilience, his never giving up, his continuing to push the envelope of his personal ability, talent. Like when you
Mhm.
use every ounce of your talent, your discipline, your hard work, your resilience, like every ounce, and you leave it out on the floor and people feel you,
Right.
that's special. And everybody felt it in that moment when he finished his routine and when he put his hands on his head. And I was like,
Oh, I know.
oh, God, it is just the love in the arena
Mhm.
and appreciation. I can't even describe it in words. It was such a beautiful thing.
Well, and I believe I saw something, and I could be totally wrong, but I saw something about him posting about, like, LA 2028, and I
You
go
go.
get it. I am so here for that, and I do think it's so cool to see. And I do, and I'm gonna say it. I think it's very cool to see these athletes not look at this as an endpoint. This Olympic trials, this year, like they're already looking ahead, which just goes to show the passion these athletes have for this sport. And again, you want to talk about athletes that wear their heart on their sleeve. My goodness. All of the men that competed at Olympic trials, all the men within really the elite program have just stepped up as these role models. I mean, to
Yes.
show and to prove, like, you can do anything you put your mind to.
Mhm.
Look at me. I mean, I'm pretty sure he posted something 'cause I remember I was like, "Oh, okay. I'm here for it. I'm here for it."
Well, and to see them all do this during a time when their sport at the D1 level in college is just under attack.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, I mean, Shane Wiskus in Minnesota. It's like,
I
really,
know. Yeah.
seriously, I can't even imagine because it guts me
Yeah.
with seeing what's happened with men's gymnastics in college. It infuriates me actually.
Mhm.
So to see them be so resilient and keep dreaming, keep
Yeah.
working, keep heading down the path toward their dream without the support, where they should have it from the universities and these programs. But that's just a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
And then, let's talk about some of the highlight routines too
Yes.
that these athletes provided, because Patrick Hoops on pommel horse, it was, Stephen and Patrick. There was this cute thing, and I cannot find it again, where they videoed it, whether it was on TikTok or something, the two of them jumping up together and doing a it was really sweet. I wish I could find it. Somebody send it to us, because it was really sweet. And then our ring specialist, Alex Diab,
Mhm.
gorgeous, second at trials. Curran
Yeah.
Phillips, parallel bars. Oh my God. I think he was 15.5 and a 15.6 on parallel bars, won trials on that event. And he's just retired. So it's like big, big kudos.
Yeah.
Um, and Colt Walker, same thing on parallel bars. He was in the top three. He was third at trials, and then in the all around, ninth. And Cameron Bach, who also retired
Yeah.
after the Olympic trials.
There was a lot of magic, and a lot of magic happening, and a lot of just amazing it's just amazing gymnastics.
Yeah, yeah. Willow agrees. Thank you.
Willow is always on our team. If I'm not correct me if I'm wrong though, Willow has quite the toe point.
Oh, a beautiful toe point, and like straight when they are
Oh,
really
wow.
together. Oh my gosh.
Just like her mother.
Yeah.
But I do want to again just reiterate, the selection committee for this Olympic team, you said this is what the athletes wanted. It was full transparency. It was very data driven. I do believe that they picked their best 5 for what they want to accomplish. And I think at the end of the day, that's a hard pill to swallow sometimes when you're not on that team. But at the same time, I don't see any of these guys not cheering their
No,
faces off for
no,
Team USA.
no. And they'll do their role as alternate and reserve athletes, because those are incredibly important.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Not only do they have to be ready at any given time, uh,
Yeah.
to go into any of the events, so they have to
Oh,
continue to
yeah.
train the all around and be ready, because you never know what's going to happen. But also to support the athletes that do, end up in those lineups
Mhm.
once they get to Paris, and support each other.
Well, Kathy, what would you like to say to the gymnasts that competed in the trials for the men, or really just, men's gymnastics just anywhere and everywhere?
Yeah. So the thing that I love about men's gymnastics is that every single event, like in women's, our events are different, very different.
Yeah,
Vault and
for sure.
beam can hardly get more different. Bars,
Right.
like, uh, but the 6 event for men, just physically to be able to have the talent, the ability,
Mhm.
the physical resilience to handle the training. I look at parallel bars, and so on bars we have grips. They're
Right.
barehanded on parallel bars. I can't even imagine the grip strength that it takes, and how easy it would be to like
Oh,
fingers.
yeah.
I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
and back in the day, I remember all the guys with the bruises and the scrapes, and
Yep.
from
Yep.
pommel horse bites all on their legs, their upper arms. Like it beats the living crap out of you. Uh,
Mhm.
but it's such a beautiful, beautiful sport. And kudos to them for maintaining some artistry and form throughout most of the events. Floor, I'd love to see one less tumbling pass, I think, and a little more creativity with some acrobat. That's just me, though, because I think it's a little bit of overkill. And I love tumbling. Trust me, I love it, love it. Um, but I hope everybody is as big a fan of men's gymnastics in Paris, because I know they're all so excited about the women and some
Mhm.
girls, and we've got, you know, 2 Olympic champions on our team, the women
Mhm.
going. We have a damn good men's team too, and we just won a bronze medal at the World Championship. So it's going to be a great competition.
That wraps up today's episode. I hope you all enjoyed. This is Flipping Out with Bridget Sloan, the Olympic special. I am your host, Bridget Sloan. Please make sure to like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Make sure to tune in each week because we will be dropping new episodes. I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day. Let's make some good life choices out there, and don't forget to be awesome. Bye, guys.